And so after studying this for a while, I came up with these 4 spatial concepts and 1 iconological concept. So, and it's COMAE, C-O-M-A-E. And centering, orienting, moving, and arranging are the spatial concepts. And then echoing is this more superficial concept. So what I'd like to do is just show you how I use centering, orienting, moving, and arranging. I think this is a theoretical framework that can work for any tribe or any spiritual association. So it's really what we're arguing is that tribes are more spiritual associations rather than cultural or ethnic or minority groups. That by legal definition, a tribe is a political entity in the United States. A lot of people by stereotype think tribes are cultural groups or ethnic groups or racial groups. I really think that's all wrong and misguided. So if we're going to talk about tribes, we say they're political entities. For architectural purposes, we want to say they're spiritual associations. So the same principles, concern for architecture that's in any spiritual tradition you know of, though, if you think about those sacred architectures, those have principles of how they're built. That's what we're arguing. Lakota has that. Ojibways have that. Seminoles have that. Every tribe has their own principles. And basically what it is the way the space was, cosmology was ordered, that's the way we can order space. Then it's specific to a tribe, to what we would call a tribe. So the first of these is this idea of centering. And all tribes have different concepts of how we center, so you have to do the research about each tribe. Is the center something you can occupy or not? And a lot of times I think in tribal societies you can't occupy the center. It's not all about, and I think it's just this pushing back against ego. That in the Western world, or modern world, it's all about me, right? Take our selfies and talk about me. In these tribal societies, in the sacred architectures, you can never stand in the middle. When you stand in the middle, everything relates to you. You're the center. And I like that you can't do that in most of these tribal sacred architectures or spiritual architectures. So here, the center of this design is that flag, so you can actually occupy it, but I have to leave it occupiable for a while because that's where I have to set up my transits in order to swing all the angles. When the design gets done, then this will be so that you cannot occupy it. And so this is if we just come, and you're welcome to, you can really hear the acoustics change if you stand here and talk. It really affects the acoustics.
This is a microphone.
Yeah, that's a hidden microphone. The NSA is watching us right now. So this whole design is based off of, I mean, this is a little not about centering, but it's about the design. The design is based on 4 points, and the whole design can be done without a ruler. And there's 4 points, and they're 48 feet apart. So if you go in a straight line this way, right under the peak of that, right under the peak of that roof, down on the floor, is 48 feet 0 inches. And when we go in there, I'll show you where that hole is. Then from that 48 feet perpendicular each side, there were 2 swing points. And with these 4 pins, the whole design can be done, just with a string and a stick. And that's what we used was a cable and a steel rod, and that's just scratched it right into the ground.
You probably said this, but where do the 48 feet come from here?
So the idea of 4 is a sacred number. In Lakota, 4 is a sacred number. So I wanted the module to be some module of 4. So we end up with 4 times 4 is 16, times 3 is 48, times 4 is 64. So we have 64 as the back of these cabins, is 64 feet to there. But 60, I didn't want the circle to be 60. Sometimes you override it with aesthetics, right? So here's the principles, but we have to make it feel good. So a 64-foot circle would just be too big for this space. So 48 felt about right. So this is on that 48-foot module with some things coming inside, like this is inside the 48. That wall, this closest wall to us all along here is 48 feet, 0 inches from just to the center of that wall. And then,
I'm sorry, but now how did you find that spot right there? How did you find the center?
I walked all this land, and I didn't know, and I almost built it right about 150 yards just this way. But finally, this is the one I settled on. And it had to have, and when we get back up there and we're looking at orienting, I can talk a little bit about that. So you have centering, orienting, moving, and arranging. Orienting is the one that puts your center in relation to the cosmos. And I wanted to be able to see that butte against the skyline. So I had to be low enough to see that butte. And then I wanted to be close to these springs, which we'll see, all these springs. But I didn't want to be so close I would have negatively influence the plants and animals. So I wanted to observe, but not to influence unduly. I'm sure I'm influencing, but at least I'm far enough away I feel they have their space and I have my space. So those are kind of some of the considerations to find a place. And I like how this, just the lake here, that it flows both ways and it kind of comes in here. This is like a peninsula or a finger, coming down here, and the entry is going to be right through there. And so it just felt right. And then by the time we put this on, then it'll look like it's, you're more in a bowl. But I don't want to bowl literally, because then we'd have drainage problems. So this way we drain it and then deal with the drainage on the perimeter, which I didn't do very good. So a lot of things I'm learning as I go. You got to be, or? So drainage problem is one thing. There's a few things I'm not good at, and I recognize lighting. I'm terrible at lighting. So you'll see inside at dark, it's dark here. And there's no exterior lights, which is positive, but inside you want light, and I just don't have it. But anyways, this idea of centering. So once you locate, okay, here's the center, how do you reinforce this? I mean, one thing just to pick it and go, but how do you reinforce it? So one idea is you shoot radials out, because all of them will connect to here, so that'll reinforce, hey, there is a center. So if you look at the shingles, except for this building, all the other roofs have shingles that radiate to this point. And those are on, and this was just, I just had to try it out at 48 feet. The spacing between these radials is 9 degrees. So every 9 degrees, a radial is shooting out from here. And that starts to set up my pattern. So and the reason I wanted about 8 feet, at 48 feet, I wanted about 8 feet between two columns. So that's how I got 9 degrees versus 8. So that's, again, adjusting. It would have been nice if it would have been 8 degrees, because then I would have my 4s. But 8 just wasn't enough, so I had to go to 9. So 9 degrees to get the spacing. So one way then, you have all these radials shooting out. The other way is to have concentric circles whose centers are on this. And so there's 3 concentric circles, and I call those drum walls. So the closest drum wall is this one right here, and this is 48 feet 0 inches to the middle of that drum wall. The second drum wall is that one with the 3 doors, and that's 53 feet 0 to that wall. And the third drum wall is the back of this porch, and that's 57 feet. So we have 3 drum walls. They're not symmetrical, 5 feet between 2 and 4 between the other. And those then, wherever a radial intersects a drum wall, that's where my columns can